What do you want, Brock? Chirp, chirp. INFJs and faith, guys. I just want to talk to you for a minute about INFJs and faith. Something about... Stop doing that, Brock. Move away from the box. Something about INFJ... One second. Alright. Something about INFJs and faith regarding their inability to reconcile themselves to reality without something to connect them to, since it cannot be people. I think I need to say that again. There's something about INFJs that compels them to want to reconcile themselves to a higher power or form of authority outside themselves because they cannot reconcile themselves to people. An INFJ's inability to express themselves and the inability to properly interpret what an INFJ is feeling based on their expressions and self-diagnoses causes a great deal of inward disconnect, both with ourselves and with other people. And to bridge this gap, it is very common for an INFJ to think of or reach out to someone who might be able to help them better understand a way to make sense of things that they cannot otherwise articulate or explain. So I'll put it to you like this. This is my cat, right? If I am feeling incredibly overjoyed with her, right? And I'm trying to pet her and I'm having a good time with her, but I can't stop licking. There's been a lot of hairballs because it's summer. But I can't properly tell her or explain to her or anyone else how that bonding makes me feel. How am I supposed to explain something that I cannot explain? Well, use similes, use comparisons, use analogies. This is where a lot of INFJs eventually find a belief in God. Their immediate response is, if it is something I cannot explain, but something I feel, then it must be able to be explained by someone who had the intent of design to create the experience I am now feeling and experiencing. By that logic, it is a simpler way and method to connect with someone through a shared common ground of what can be easily understood by things that cannot be otherwise explained. Do not misunderstand. That is not I believe in faith because since the sky is blue, I'm just going to assume that it has nothing to do with rays of light and that the rays of light are actually a fundamental truth behind the philosophy of the human race. That's not what it's saying. What it's saying. That's not what I'm trying to explain INFJs are doing. It's more like this. There are two times where God makes the most sense. At birth and at death. Explain to me grief. Tell me what you're feeling. Yeah, pretty darn hard. Immediately, everyone watching's like, wait a minute. Yeah, I can't really do that. Explain to me what watching your child comes into the world is like. Yeah, okay. You see my point. It's a lot easier to say it's a miracle than to try explaining to me what you're thinking and feeling. For an INFJ, bonding over faith is one of the most fundamental ways to share our experience. It's a lot easier if there's common ground for an INFJ to explain how they feel. Now, watch how I tie all this together. If you know an INFJ, you're dating one, and there's no form of belief system in their life, a lot of INFJs will default to Buddhism or a works-based practice or possibly Catholicism because it makes sense to them. It's an expression of what they're feeling that they cannot otherwise explain. Whether that be the Virgin Mary, the prayers, or the rosaries, whatever it is. And I was raised Catholic, I don't believe in it. Personally, not anymore. And if it's about Buddhism, right, and spending time in meditation and just finding peace with having less, those are things that an INFJ will express through Thanksgiving. If it comes to a Christian faith, since it's Easter, I figured that this was very timely, then that expression of Thanksgiving, it's going to be really hard to say thank you in more ways than thank you, or I'm so grateful, or this is like an oasis of dreams inside of a sunset's ray. Like, sure, you can be poetic, but that still doesn't quite bring, because what if you don't understand what I'm saying poetically? That doesn't really bring connection. And as you already know, INFJs seek connection. Not if you're in a relationship with or you know an INFJ and you don't share that same connection, it's a lot harder for them to connect with you, but it makes it harder for them to feel like you are connected with them. If there is a male INFJ, don't be surprised if they back off from you if you don't believe the same things that they do. INFJs are very individualized people. We have our own set of morals and values and beliefs that govern and anchor us, as does everybody. But for an INFJ, it's really a central part of our identity and functioning day to day, really. But part of how we interpret our extroverted feelings are through an expression of what is internally valuable to us. And a lot of times that involves some form of belief system. So summarize this all together here. If your INFJ in your life doesn't have one of those, a lot of times you're going to find that they try to serve through acts of service. For an INFJ who does have a belief system, they're oftentimes going to default to words of affirmation or quality time. And for an INFJ who has a belief system closer to that of the Christian faith, you might find that gifts really speaks to them. For an INFJ who's discovering and hasn't quite found something, but they're like, something exists out there, you're going to find, again, quality time and words of affirmation are primarily the way that they speak. Now, all of that is primarily rooted in the identity that they get as a result of sharing something. So for a faith-filled believer that believes in the Christian faith, that primarily deals with the values that come as a result of that faith. So we're talking Matthew chapter 5, to be meek, to be humble, but thanksgiving, to be kind to the people who hurt you, to not hold grudges. That's going to come forward in the form of a simple prayer of thanksgiving around the dinner table, and you'll see that INFJ's face soften. You'll see their shoulders drop. They're going to feel more connected, especially if it's as meaningful to you as it is to them. So we're going to kind of close this here. Message of this day for Easter, for all of you watching, and for those who are still following my channel. And, I'll be off and on for a while, but I'm working on getting some things set up so that I can keep coming back and stay consistent again. Moral of the story and the message for you is this. An INFJ's values should be inherited, not rejected. They should not just be adopted, they should be embraced. By rejecting an INFJ's faith, you're essentially rejecting them. I know that it's not the same for everyone. For some people, their faith is a central part of their life, and they can have it and still be friends with you, and it doesn't have to really get in between that friendship, and they're okay kind of doing their thing. An INFJ will end up finding a barrier. If you are on the completely opposite end of the spectrum of what they believe, they might try to understand your philosophies better. That doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a deep connection. There might be a connection, but it might not go as deep as you would prefer. If you're neither for them or against them, they're probably going to be more standoffish, or just as standoffish as if you believe the total opposite. If you believe the exact same things as them, then it can actually open up a romantic relationship. That's kind of where I'm closing with this. It's really important for an INFJ to feel like their morals and values and things they cannot articulate are able to be understood, and that really does deepen their bond. All right.